Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are doing the Steam follow list cleanup. Sorry, hit the microphone there. Today we're going through games that start with the letter M. Where is my mouse? It's over here. Okay. So what we're doing here is we have a super long follow list, which is the second tier list to the Steam wishlist, where the Steam wishlist has games I actually do want to cover. They're of a certain quality. I want to own them. I ask people to support my channel by gifting me games off my wishlist. Therefore, it's kind of important that there not be total absolute garbage on the wishlist, because it doesn't help anybody if I have to review a game or feel I need to review a game that was gifted to me and then I just tear it to shreds because it had no chance of being having anything positive said about it at all. So we're looking at everything with a critical eye for two perspectives. One, it might be a game that gets a special exemption from me. Otherwise, we're looking for games that either have relevancy because they have more than 20 verified reviews. That's what this number means, verified purchase reviews. This isn't the total number of reviews on Steam, it's the total number of people that bought the game actually on Steam and didn't activate it with a key or get it for free, and that those reviews are in the positive range. Now this game, for instance, is 97% positive of the 44 verified purchase reviews. Otherwise, if it doesn't have that relevancy, I'm looking at games that came out before January 1st, 2019, thus they've been given, as of this recording, more than 6 months to get their game in some form of state where it's in front of somebody's eyes, so there's maybe a review or two. Otherwise, if we did run into a game that had 0 reviews and came out more than 6 months ago, which we have yet to have happen, then I would just have to probably ignore it as an irrelevant game. Of course, I might just give a special pass if the game looks interesting, and I would say this first game, Macrotis: A Mother's Journey, does seem to have a somewhat interesting artistic look. It looks like it is a puzzle platformer, and that would be accurate with these two user-defined tags. That being said, there might not be too much game here. This might be a couple of hours of walking from the left to the right. One thing I can see here is we're not really seeing any enemies that we have to deal with. It seems like we'll get some abilities. We're not seeing any like coins or anything like a Super Mario Bros. Game, which is probably for the best. I've really, with the exception of Super Mario Bros. Games, a game with a bunch of coins or collectibles laid along the path usually isn't that good. Although you can use that technique to breadcrumb where the player should go, it's often not necessary. So you're playing as a little mouse. There was quite a few mouse games that came out in the last few years. Although at least one of them is in VR only. So we're looking for other red flags that might kick this game out of consideration, and we'll look at the price. $8.49 discounted by 15% to get there is not an unrealistic price for what I'm seeing. We'll look to see if it has single player. If it's an online only multiplayer game, that's not my style. And then I will look at the languages, and I hate to say this every time, but we might as well get through it. If I find a game that is English and Russian only, or English and Chinese only, or even English and Chinese and Russian but no other languages, there tends to be games that come out that support those languages that are very low effort games. Now, none of those games actually should be on the follow list in the first place, and so every time I've said this so far, I haven't really been able to show too many examples of it. But as I'm looking at every single game that comes out on Steam every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I see a lot of them. Awards don't really mean anything. Whatever they describe the game themselves as, usually not that important unless they were going to say the actual play time. You can try to see the comparable play time in the reviews. Here you have somebody that has 10.3 hours on record, but then you have here somebody with 6.5 hours on record, and both of these people got the game for free and activated by a key. So this is what Steam is trying to avoid, is a case where there's a lot of people that either backed a Kickstarter or just got free keys for reviews and put a bunch of positive reviews. Generally speaking, I don't really care what any positive review has to say, so I'd only want to look at the negative reviews. In this case, there aren't any in my language, so you have one in what could be Chinese, Japanese, or Korean, or any other Asian language, one that looks like it might be in Italian, and one that's in another Asian character, and one that looks like it's in Russian. And so that's not very helpful. We won't be spending a lot of time looking at recommended or similar games because Steam's recommendation engine is not super useful, although this game Robbie Swifthand and the Orb of Mysteries does catch my interest. Inside is more of a dark style game, and it's these recommendations don't really tell me anything about the game we're looking at. The amount of achievements might be a bit of a red flag, but it'd be hard. It would either be that it has 100 achievements as a game, or a lot of achievements for a very cheap game if it had like 60 and the game was 99 cents, or if it has only one achievement, because Steam will highlight if you get 100% of achievements. So if it has only one, it's really easy to get 100%, or it will otherwise people just want to get their number of achievements on Steam up really high, not that it highlights it anywhere or does anything. There is something you can do where you highlight individual pictures for achievements, so sometimes they'll give out achievements that have numbers or letters so you could spell something out, and that would also fall under the category of an achievement game. But we've started pretty well. This is a game that's going to make it to the wish list, and not too many do. The only thing that scared me is as I'm watching this video, it says face unforgiving challenges, so it feels like I might very well kind of struggle with it. That being said, I'm not that scared of playing a game like this. This looks fine. I don't know this developer, I don't know this publisher. I will warn you that this page I reloaded, but I am at 84% of 16 gigs of RAM full because I have so many Chrome tabs open. The rest of these games will probably have thumbnails and images that won't load up, and at the first at least maybe we'll reload some of the pages, but I don't really want to spend the extra time to reload every page. And if I did reload every page, Steam itself, their website, would block me for opening so many tabs at the same time. Also, we may run into some adult games, lewd games, sex games, visual novels, possibly adult visual novels. We'll also see some non-adult visual novels or censored or toned down visual novels. So if I see anything like that, I'll blur the screen for a moment to look at to make sure everything is YouTube friendly. So let's move to the next game. This one made it to the wish list. Probably the first example, actually, of a game, the first game in the series going to the wish list. So this is probably a much better example of the type of games we'll be looking at. Well, we have Mad Princess: The Great Gladiators. It has 4 user reviews of verified purchases. Came out December 29th, 2017. And what it strikes me as is this is probably a dungeon crawler with RPG elements and aesthetics to make it look like you're fighting in a Coliseum and doing like a Coliseum fighting sim type game. The animation here looks particularly pixelated and bad as we're watching the videos. And we're not going to watch every video either, that would take way too long. A Coliseum simulator is not a terrible thought, but and here's an example of an image that, sure, I can reload the page, but is it really worth it? This is such a pixelated image that there's no way you would want to look at this, even for the cheesecake of it and the skin showing. Yeah, there's kind of nothing here. I guess I imagine this was on the follow list because I like the idea of doing a Gladiator, like the movie Gladiator, simulation style game. Probably not as a dungeon crawler though. You could do that, but it would require a lot of work. I don't know this developer. I may have seen this publisher, but I don't think there's anything good they've ever published, or that I can think of. This is also a red flag when you have a game that is bundled with a bunch of other games. When you have 5 games here and they're under $40, that's a concern. Also, this price at $17.99 is too high. There's also no full audio in English and no support for any Japanese language. So if this was a niche Japanese game from like a Vita and people really liked it, you're getting a very bare bones port. We could see what reviews we have, but we really don't need that. Here's an example of an Asian language negative review when the game itself is not even supporting Asian languages. So this is the kind of game we'll see a lot more of, and obviously this is leaving the follow list. My standards fortunately have gone up, and because of that, in 6 months or a year when I need to do the next follow list cleanup, there will be new games to evaluate, and the lists hopefully will be shorter because of my standards going up, but also a lot more games are just not going to make it to the list or from the list to the wish list. And I wish I had a better way of saying that, where I called the follow list and the wish list something else. But that's pretty much what we have. Next we have Mad Tower Tycoon, which is 83% positive of 120 user reviews, verified purchase reviews. There is a tower management sim game that came out on PC at some point. It was rather popular. There was definitely some mobile clones of that style of game, and I imagine there were quite a few PC clones of that game. Almost certainly Mad Tower Tycoon is not the original of this style of game, but I also would think, kind of unimportantly, I've had my fill of simulation games, and I don't think this would really interest me. You also would have to think Fallout Shelter, not when it originally came out, but in the state it is now, is a tower tycoon game that kind of has a pretty good experience, with maybe the one limiting factor that you can't just continuously build and build and build. That being said, I really have no interest in this game. That now that I scroll down and see it's in early access, that brings up another issue. This came out October 18th, 2018. It's had 6 months. It's not out of early access. It's $14.99. There is a considerable amount of games that are in early access on Steam that need to get some reevaluation, in my opinion. they need to be either Steam needs to potentially get rid of the early access tag for people that are small-time publishers and self-publishers to start off with. Early access should require you to have some kind of business relationship with publishers or Valve to say, yes, we'll let you use this tag. And then there needs to be a reevaluation and agreement that either you put out a final version of your game that is finalized, a version 1.0, or we're going to remove it from Steam. Because there's so many abandoned games, or games that at least feel like they're abandoned. And 6 months in the long run for game development isn't really a lot. Let's just be honest to that. Games usually take, AAA games usually take 4, 6, 8 years. Games have been known to take 12 years, 25 years. Possibly there's some games that have been in development for even 30 years. But early access has become this idea that is getting manipulated both by AAA publishers and developers and by indie developers in a way that nothing ever has to be finished. And it shows that a lot of game developers can't really finish their games. And there is this saying, true art is never finished, only abandoned. They kind of need, more game developers need to abandon their work and just say, it's good enough for version 1.0. Any more ideas we can take to the sequel or DLC. Next, we're looking at a game called Modorica Real Estate. This claims to be a unique escape room game that uses pen and paper. Search for hints, jot down notes on maps, and seek out magic to exercise all of the ghosts to escape. I'm thinking what this probably is. Does this have VR support? No. I'm thinking what this probably is, then, is a simplistic game, probably a Unity asset flip game, or at least that's what you would call it the closest relationship to. And then a lot of the game is not actually programmed into what we're seeing in the video, so because you're going to have to use pen and paper. And when I think about that, I don't think that there's any way I could cover a game like this and use pen and paper and do this. This game came out February 26, 2019. It has only 11 reviews, so theoretically I should give it a couple more months and see if more people review it. But my stances have increased, and I'm pretty sure this is not something I could ever cover. $16.99 is very expensive. Simplified Chinese and Japanese, so clearly an Asian influence game. The 2 negative reviews, we could look here, but I pretty much already made my decision. And while this loads up, I wouldn't be surprised if none of them are in my language. Let's see. Use the pen and paper to escape a haunted house. Solve unique puzzles while scribbling down hints on maps. 20 levels of escape room style puzzles await you. Do you have what it takes to escape the haunted house? Printing out the floor plan map. It is possible to view a digital version of the floor plans inside the game. However, you can enjoy the game even more by using printers to print out the floor plan. You can get the PDF data from the link in the game. Q is the map, W is the win menu, and E is config, and I imagine it's super simplistic. There has not been a lot of games, but there definitely have been a few games that are tie-ins to other experience. Digital side apps that are coming on Steam for people playing tabletop games. There was a Warhammer game like that came out. Yeah, both of these are in non-English, so I can't read them. So yeah, Rica real estate. It does, at first glance, catch my attention, certainly, but this level of animation and the fact that every room is just basically a square, and it seems like there's basically nothing else happening here, that this is the equivalent of the old board games that would have you play a tape, and then the VHS tape would somewhat randomize its actions based on the point it was rewound to. Moving on. Next we have a game called Magic Masks, which came out April 30th, 2018. This looks like a box puzzle game, and I've kind of bent over backwards trying to find box pushing puzzle games and never really been able to find one that's particularly that good. I imagine it's because a box puzzle pushing game is really something that should just be a mini game in something else, and you should only do it a couple times, even in a AAA style game. There was a Broken Sword point and click adventure game. It was, I think, maybe the third game in the series where you had to do a box puzzle sliding mechanic, and the camera was all wonky if I recall correctly, and it was a nightmare. This does seem slightly different in the fact that you have different masks that seems to change how you can build other kinds of blocks, which is slightly interesting, but there really is no relevancy here. Nobody else thought it was worthy of reviews except for 6 people, which isn't enough. This is a $2.99 game, which is about the right price for what we're seeing. We've certainly seen games that look like that cost a lot more. But if nobody's ever heard of it, my little channel is probably not going to convince people to play it. This is an interesting situation because there's no negative reviews at all. 9 hours, 26 hours on record, 1.8 hours on record. Let's see, another 20 plus hours on record, 4.5 hours. So is this a hidden gem that I should put on the wish list? Or is this a game that I should ignore? Let's see. 6 different regions to explore, 64 handcrafted puzzles with increasing difficult, increasing challenging. Both heroes get their own unique magic masks. It's a single-player, casual puzzle adventure. I think this might be the box puzzle game I've been looking for, quite frankly. This really is coming down to me making a special exception, though. Clearly, nobody else has purchased this or played it, and it would probably concern me a lot less if this was a 99-cent game. Although, quite often I'll look at the wish list and go, oh, that game is only 99 cents, it's probably garbage. And then I'll buy something that's closer to a $5 game. But I think Magic Masks deserves a chance, so I'm going to put it on the wish list. Next we have Magical Monsterland, and there's a pretty large list, I bet, of games starting with Magic as the first name. Not as many as there might have been at one point. Certainly NES, Super NES era, Super Ally games, I imagine, starting Magic. What this looks like to me is a kind of fast-paced Donkey Kong Country clone, even with the barrel elements, and that's the reason why I think this is something that would make it to the wish list compared to so many other games where if I saw platforming and coin collecting, I would call it a student project or say that it was incredibly unpolished. The art here does look cartoony but very polished. This looks like there's a real game here. There's even a mini game. There's a boss fight we're seeing. So yeah, and clearly this is heavily influenced by the Donkey Kong Country series. That being said, here's the problem. It's 88% positive of 18 reviews, so it doesn't have relevancy. And it came out October 15th, 2018, and it's still in early access. That the most recent update was May 18th, which is about half a month away from the time I'm recording this right now. So do I give this 6 more months? Here's somebody that had an incredibly terrible outcome playing the game. I think this is the kind of negative review, though, that you should probably ignore, because no program, unless you're allowing it to run as administrator, should be allowed to mess with your System32 folder and mess up Windows. So my suspicion is that this was an unconnected issue. It's another German negative review. I kind of want to give this a chance. There aren't a lot of Donkey Kong Country clones that I've been able to find. And Chief's Quest, or Kid Baby Star Child, Magenta, not games I really recognize. Goblin and Coins. Goblin and Coins is a great example of something I would call a student project, or something that looks like it's made in MS Paint, and I wouldn't have ever put on the fall list in the first place. There's certainly a level of quality that you'd have to do. Even if you are going for a pixelated 8-bit retroactive style, there's a level of polish even in that I would require to make me want to play that game. Let's see. Yeah, I just don't know here. Should I give this 6 more months? I guess I'll be generous. This is how I got so many games certainly on the wish list in the follow list in the first place, though, as I was being generous. But I really do want to see this game be a finished product and come out. That being said, there is growing evidence that the developer doesn't know how to really release a game, because they're self-publishing, and they released this October 15th, 2018, when in the middle of June 2019, it's still not out. It's still not a finished product. So, but I'm gonna be generous and give this another 6 months, and probably in 6 months when I come back and look at this again, I'll say forget it, if I remember, which is a big if. Next we have a game called Make Sales. So I guess we don't have that many games actually in starting with Magic. It says make boats and sail them, survive an ocean of storms and beasts. These type of games are, for lack of a better description, they feel like they're just Unity interpreters, where they open up elements to the Unity programming compiler so that the player themselves can build their own items, and thus at that point it's really making people who buy the game make the game instead of the game developers actually making a game. This came out March 30th, 2018. I've seen a lot of these games. Some of them got pretty popular on YouTube for a while, but I don't think they're super popular now. And usually they're on land vehicles that you're building, not boat vehicles. So there's a slight difference in the idea, but not big enough that it makes any sense, that it makes any difference. $19.99 for an early access game. Apparently there's some exploring with procedurally crafted islands, but that's kind of it. I could look at the negative reviews here, but it's frankly a waste of time. So we could look at a whole list of games that were all similar to this, where you're just building the same thing. And I imagine what it was is Besiege was a very popular one of these. I imagine a lot of this is just a pre-made Unity asset project that is just getting slight changes to. Or maybe the influence of things like Kerbal Space Program, which kind of had that idea too. Gave it 5 minutes. The default boat's like a minute after first sailing. Sorry, but no. Dead and boring. That's some of the negative reviews. So make sale can leave the follow list. Next we have Mana Spark, which looks like it is a top-down 8-bit graphics RPG. They're calling it an action RPG with deep Souls-like combat and roguelike elements, which sounds like a lot of search engine optimization as a description. Just trying to get as many different things mentioned in your title. That being said, of 172 verified purchases, 84% are positive. I don't notice developer or publisher. This looks like a Devolver Digital game, I believe, published. There was this game I covered on my YouTube channel, and I don't know if I can remember the name of it, where you shoot one arrow and that's it. And if you miss the arrow, it gets stuck in the wall, and then you have to go pick it up, or you can summon it back, but it takes time. And every single boss, with maybe the exception of the final boss, takes just one hit in their weak spot with that arrow to win, with some changes and things sometimes you have to do. And it does kind of have that feel. I'm a little surprised I was able to get as far as I did in that game covering it. I got to the final boss, and I think I actually did finally defeat the final boss on the easiest mode. But I'm certainly not going to play it on the hardest difficulty. This is $9.99, and I'm not a super fan of top-down twin-stick shooter style games, which also would include top-down RPG dungeon crawlers or roguelikes. I'm also not a super fan of 8-bit pixel graphics style games. This to me just looks like somebody was being lazy or isn't capable of animating something that looks nice. So I'm willing to overlook some of that, but handcrafted and procedurally generation means basically nothing, because those are contradictory ideas. Either you handcrafted the levels, or you had a procedural algorithm generate the levels. Can't be both. Let's see what the negative reviews say. See if I can find something here that will convince me not to buy this. It's 28 out of versus 190 positive ones. Let's see. Oh man, this was fun, but so anticlimactic that I'm not sure my 13 hours was worth it. Progression was challenging and fun, but after beating the first boss 200 times and the second boss 100 times, I only had to kill the third boss once to know the game was over. 3 bosses, that's it. Initially played this game on Game Jolt and had high hopes, but really good gameplay and execution, too little content, and a boring ending. 13 hours. This one has 20 hours. I'm so disappointed. I have a brand new Mac Mini, 30 gigahertz. The game just lags. A lot of promise, but a lot of problems. There are a lot of shield enemies, and they tend to be bullet spongy. The item variety is not that great. The second boss is literally the dumbest boss fight I've ever seen. Some enemies feel really cheap. Very unstable on Linux. If you die, the game exits. 5 out of 10. Spark is an interesting game to say the least. I imagine this concept has some of the concepts that this game has probably have been done in other games better, and this is an example of putting them together is probably not that helpful. Meanwhile, there are other games in comparison, like Dead Cells, that have a lot more coverage and are a lot more positively received, and I think you probably would be better off playing Dead Cells than this. I haven't gotten around to playing Dead Cells, so that puts me in a weird position. I'm trying to think of that game. I guess the only Devolver Digital hidden gems. Let's see if this includes the game I'm thinking of. No. But if we go over here and then click the publisher's name, we'll get to the publisher page. And then if I just go back, I should be able to find this, unless I'm thinking of a game that's not published by Devolver Digital, and if that's the case, then oops. And we'll just move forward. Otherwise, that game that we're considering, yeah, it's not making it to the wish list. Knocked. Is Knocked ever out of early access? I got this game for free, covered it in early access in 2015, and I don't think it is even out of early access now. Titan Souls, here we go. So, that's the name of it, this game. And I think you'd very much have a better experience. Over its lifetime, 80% positive of 3,434 user reviews. And you're doing a top-down game that is pretty difficult, but has a lot more bosses. And they're all one-hit kills. There's really not any RPG element to it. You don't upgrade your bow and arrow, as far as I know. The only thing that maybe changes is that after the first playthrough, you might understand some of the native language you see in the name cards, and that's kind of nothing. It doesn't explain anything or tell you anything that you wouldn't already know. So yeah, Titan Souls is the better version to get. I wonder what the difference between the collector's edition is and the regular edition. Probably just art books and such. So yeah, and as I go through the follow list, and I know I'm kind of rambling and jumping around here, my point of this is, when considering games like Mana Spark, considering other things I've already played is a big factor. If I, for instance, played a online multiplayer first-person shooter and didn't like one of them, I probably don't need to play 20 other online first-person shooter multiplayer games unless I just manage to play the worst one available and all the others are way better, which might be a case, but yeah, Mana Spark, despite being positive, my standards are really, really high, and I think that this should leave the follow list too. Next we have Marble Race, and I almost certainly put this on here because I wanted a Marble Madness clone that looked relatively decent. The problem with this, and not even particularly about this game game actually looks pretty well polished. The problem though is for a long time there was a significantly large amount of Unity asset marble games that were mostly asset flips and very little effort was put into them. This seems to not be so much that and more a actual attempt at making a game. I think it's probably not super successful. It's 81% positive of 16 user reviews, but it came out December 1st, 2018. It's still early access, so it's almost certainly never going to come out. Here's a mistake. If your game is in version 1 point anything, it really can't be in beta at that point. You should have had a final version, and if there were elements you wanted to add after that, well then that's a free update, that's adding more content, but there's no reason to say you're still in early access. There's kind of nothing here I think that would convince me to put this or leave this on the wish list or the fall list. And when Steam recommends games here, they're not really recommending any other mobile games, but there was quite a lot of them. If I was to really think back and try and play Marble Madness, or one of the Marble Madness games, it probably plays terribly, particularly when you realize that a lot of Marble Madness games were originally designed for arcade cabinets that had a trackball that you were rolling to move the marbles. So unless you have a trackball input on your computer, which you would be building a very specialized input if you did have that, you're not going to have much that's similar to that. So yeah, Marble Race can leave the fall list. We're not having to really think too hard. Next we have Marco Polo. I imagine this is a old Infogrames game because the developers labeled Infogrames, and I probably got overly ambitious about owning old games. I have no nostalgia for this game. I never played it as far as I can tell. There doesn't really look like there's much here. They'll have black bars, although it does seem like it's kind of stretched out to a weird resolution. This seems to me to be probably a attempt at an educational software. Here you have live action still images. Yeah, this must be a trading strategy simulation game. $6.99, and really it just is going to come down to the fact that, yeah, unless you have nostalgia for Marco Polo, there's no reason to even consider it. And I clearly have gone off the rails far too many times. If I wanted to play a strategy trading game these days, it would probably be a Space 4X style of game. Those are far more popular. Yeah, so Marco Polo not making it to the wishlist, nowhere close. Next we have Mars Z Tactical Base Defense, which is tagged as a tower defense game, and there have been so many bad tower defense games, and I really don't have any interest in playing any tower defense games, that anything I see that is labeled as tower defense almost always gets immediately rejected. That being said, the video I'm saying here makes us feel a little bit more like a real-time strategy game with tower defense, which StarCraft, certainly there were towers that were used to defend bases, but you wouldn't really call StarCraft a tower defense game. I am pretty cautious when I see games selling the ability to make your own maps. It's a nice feature, but it also is an indication that there's not a lot of content. I would say for what we're seeing here, and the fact that it is set on Mars in general, there's not a lot of texture in the background. It is just Mars sand and hills. There's no greenery, no plants, no energon or energy or crystals to mine or anything like that as far as I can tell. There probably is something to mine, but it's just not being depicted in what is a particularly brown and red background. Now, this is 72% positive of 247 reviews, so it's meeting all the metrics. It came out April 4th, 2019, so it also has not been out that long even. That being said, I don't think I could be convinced that I want to play this. I think it's selling itself to the people who like to play it, but that's it. The price here would be $21.99, which is an odd price, certainly. Why not $19.99 as a base price? And for me, since I'd only be playing the single player, and in fact, I guess everybody's only playing the single player because there's no local multiplayer or online multiplayer at all. So the only thing you can do is the 20 missions story campaign, and then you're using the map editor or outbreak mode or skirmish mode or one of these other modes. It has Twitch mode. Too many games thought that was going to be a way of selling their games, and I'm glad that fad came and went very quickly. I really don't think I could be sold on this. Game stops running properly after 15 minutes. After the ground breaks away, can't place any defensive turrets. Just waited $20 on a game that needs a severe overhaul on mechanics and difficulty. The game is very nice in many ways, however the difficulty set even to the lowest possible level for sure is too heavy. Very high frustration coming up very quickly. That's a no-go. Yeah. So we've got a decent number of negative reviews, like a quarter of negative reviews, and a game style that I don't really want to play anyways. So Mars Z Tactical Base Defense, I guess I gave it the benefit of the doubt. Today I'm being more critical and not giving it the benefit of the doubt. Next we have a game called Melodin Deck, and I have no idea why this is on the follow list. Came out December 22nd, 2018. This seems to be... I have no idea. I have no idea why this is on the follow list. It's early access. It's $11.99. It's being released episodically. It's English and French, which doesn't really mean anything. I don't see a game here. Says it's a puzzle game. And then it has this kind of weird cutscene that probably means nothing. And then the gameplay video doesn't really show me what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea why this would have even been on the follow list. This seems to be just craziness. Maybe there was some language element there because of the symbols. But yeah, what I'm seeing, it shouldn't have been on the follow list. And I guess this is the first cleanup I've ever done on the follow list, so I guess it is possible, very possible, that I just clicked the follow button on accident. Next we have a game called Memoir. I guess is that how you spell memoir? Is there an E at the end? Let's see. Explore the ruins of an ancient castle, solve puzzles, and guide a little deerkin through the areas. This looks like it's a box puzzle pushing game. Came out April 27th, 2018. It has 5 reviews, so it's really not relevant. And I think there is a game that came out more recently than this. What is the name of that? Uh, let's see. Baba Is You is the name of the game. And that is a puzzle programming kind of game where you're also doing some box pushing elements. So it combines two ideas together to make a much better puzzle concept. And I would say playing as a deer in a deer world, slightly interesting as a story concept, but then the gameplay implementation does nothing for that. And apparently, at the request of the publisher, Memoir is no longer available for sale on Steam. Let's see. And apparently, you can buy it on itch.io. Which I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, if Steam would have every right to delete this page or hide it so that people could not get to it anymore. They certainly have done that with other people. Cross-promoting to another storefront is not something Steam really needs to do or should do. If we were to look at this publisher, apparently they have nothing coming up. If we look at this developer, they have nothing coming up. If we look at this other developer, they have nothing coming up. So the only way I guess you even find this game is if you have a even typing in the exact name does not bring up that game. Instead, the closest we have is a completely different game. And if I type it and then hit enter, would it come up? Nope, not really. So this is a game that's on my follow list but unavailable to purchase, so I really don't have to consider it or care about it. I don't know why somebody would remove their game when it has 0 negative reviews and it was selling not great on Steam, but it's not like there's an annual fee or anything. It's just a 30% cut on sales for any new sales. And so many other developers have gone the other direction to leave their games abandoned on Steam for very long times, years and years and years. It's a little weird to see the opposite happen, particularly when it's not being forced upon people. Next we have a game called Merrily Perily. Is this still early access? I thought it was early access. I think it was when I first looked at it. So, Merrily Perily is a game about Crisis. It's tagged as an adventure game. It came out September 27th, 2018. It's 81% of 11 user reviews. So, what it is supposed to be, as I understand, and really it needs way more of a description here for what you're doing, is you're dying of something always. So he just died of dehydration. Now he's dying of being attacked by bees. Now you're dying of drowning. Now you're dying of being on fire. So the point is, whatever you do to solve the first crisis causes the next crisis, is how I understand it. So it's you're gonna run around and die a lot, and you're gonna have to try and figure out the solution. So he drinks holy water, or jumps in the lake, or goes to the well, and in that one scenario, he tries to find the solution. And so it seems like kind of a funny game, funny idea. It's not a terrible thing. I like the animation well enough. It probably is a pretty short game with a pretty small area that you walk through. This is something I'd probably spotlight in like 30 minutes, but they are also only asking $3.99 for it. It has multiple endings, 1,200 lines of dialogue, which is a decent amount for a game, not anywhere up to visual novel level. There is a game called Misadventure that is out, that recently came out, that might be the exact same idea. The game is cheap, it's cute, and it's a good laugh as long as you unlock every possible ending. Not a bad deal for the price. 2 negative reviews. Probably won't be in my language. I think what Misadventure, to compare it to Merrily Parily, does differently is that you're trying as the narrator to convince a little French girl to kill herself or hurt herself, and in this you're on the opposite end of it. I think there's ways, if well written, that you could do both stories depending on the outcome. I assume at the end of Misadventure she actually doesn't ever get hurt or die, whereas at the end of this game he would also survive, at least in one ending. This game is really boring. It has only one puzzle. Its solution takes time, but its completion doesn't feel rewarding. In the end, I didn't enjoy it. You can buy it if you want. Easy 100 achievements. Not very fun because of a loop of, let's see. So yeah, once you figure out the solution, I think you're probably not gonna ever play the game again. I think Merrily Parily, though, does deserve. It's not asking a lot in money time. I want to see if this developer has made anything else of interest. So this would be our 3rd game actually making it to the wish list, whereas most of the other games are not. Let's see, there's a game here called A Book of Beasts and Buddies, which is 97% positive, over 180 reviews, and of course it's free, so anybody can review it after they download it. TikTok Isle, which I believe is a game that's on my wish list, and it's 90% positive. And then the 2 versions of Merrily Parily, the main version and the deluxe edition, and then there's the time travel bundle, which is also positive. So yeah, that's a good example of a developer who makes a decent product and puts it out, and it's well reviewed. So yeah, that decent price, decent product. Let's move on. Next we have a game called Metanoia, a first-person adventure set inside the mind. Explore the island that is your mind and portals to the world, each showcasing a mental illness. Geez, how many mental illnesses can I have inside a mind, a single mind? What this probably is, and I've seen a lot of games that use this kind of description, because what they're trying to do, and the phrase they're trying to say is, this is a surreal walking simulator where we've put a bunch of asset flips together, but they don't want to say it that way because that's kind of cruel, and half of them probably don't know what surrealism is. So what I'm seeing here is maybe a little bit of a platformer on top of being an asset flip walking simulator, but not really anything here that looks like a gameplay mechanic. I'm a little surprised that there's even a character, and when you see this character it looks pretty awful. And if you wanted a game where you go inside the mind of a crazy person, then Alice, American McGee's Alice and Alice Madness Returns would be my recommendation there. Although I don't think either one of those games are on Steam at the moment, and the American McGee of American McGee is attempting to get funding to make a 3rd game, although he hasn't really started development or anything. He's in pre-development. and frankly I'm not sure it would ever get greenlit or funded enough. This came out May 23rd, 2018. Again, it's hinging on early access. It's selling for $2.99, which is a little too cheap for games. We could look at reviews here. There's 7 positive reviews, but they're all activated. Well, half of them are activated by key, which means they got the game for free. And the reason why I want to see 20 reviews, since I didn't say it this recording, is because frankly I feel like you could get 10, maybe even 15 of your friends to buy a game if you self-publish a game and review it positively for you. I think at about 20 though, you'd be stretching it. So 20 reviews to me feels like a line of credibility. Frankly, I would want to see 100 reviews in every game, but most games don't get that. Anyways, Metanoia, Noia, I don't even know how you pronounce that, Noia, just not making it to the wish list. Shouldn't really even be on the follow list. Next we have Metro Exodus, which is rated very positively, but unfortunately it's not available on Steam. So yeah, this was one of the first games that went on to the Epic storefront and became an Epic Store exclusive. I suppose that this game will go back on sale on Steam 6 months after that. I think that's what they've said. That being said, I've never played any of the previous Metro games, and the fact that the publisher Deep Silver made the decision to put Metro Exodus on the Epic Store is probably a kiss of death for this series, not just this game, as far as I'm concerned. I was thinking about going back and playing the old Metro games as kind of an alternate to a Fallout style game, because let's face it, Fallout's not been great either. The 4,316 people that were honored in their pre-orders on Steam seem to be 88% positive, so they like the game. That being said, nobody can buy it. You can buy the expansion pass, and that's it. And it has third-party Denuvo, but I don't really concern too much about that, or the fact that it has a third-party end-user license agreement. 82 on Metacritic, yeah. So it really just puts me on a weird position, and here's how a lot of people reviewed it. It's like they gave the game a positive review, and then just ASCII'd Deep Silver and the Epic Store, and you really have to blame the publisher on that one. It's the publisher's decision what storefronts a game is published on, not the developers. Although the developer certainly could have a hand in it. Borderlands 3 being an Epic Store exclusive, I suspect was at least partially influenced by Gearbox, the developers, CEO, more than 2K specifically just demanding it, although 2K would have had the final say regardless. And I suspect that because Gearbox CEO was highly praising the Epic Store. So it just kind of puts me in a weird position. Do I want to let bygones be bygones, or do I blacklist in a true blacklist and say this game should never be purchased by me, it should never be purchased by anybody, they should see their sales drop to 0 or have very few sales on the Steam storefront? Outside of the first year, I doubt anybody really would care about the number of units sold on a game. So do you wait a year, like 6 months after the 6 months exclusive? Do you wait 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Do you buy this on a Steam sale 10 years from now when this is a long forgotten issue? and very possibly the Epic Store is out of business? Or do you hold that grudge? Unfortunately, consumers don't hold grudges as long as they should, in my opinion. And if this is to be a true boycott, I should just not cover it. And frankly, it's no skin off my teeth if I don't cover it. So I think Metro Exodus leaves the fall list. Yeah. It's relevant, certainly. A lot of people played it. A lot of people have heard the story. But I don't think I need to be part of that conversation any more than I already have been. Just go ahead and ignore it. And never buy the Metro series. Never play the Metro series. It's rated M with some nudity in it. So maybe that would have required some censorship on YouTube anyways. But yeah, I think Metro Exodus can leave. Next game we have is Miasma or the Devil's Stone, which says it's the second Jonathan Hunt sequel to the award-winning full motion video Yormar Jack's Ring. Is this a real FMJ game, full motion video game that people liked, or is this a troll game? 70% positive of 10 user reviews. It came out May 2nd, 2018. Miasma or the Devil's Stone is a weird name. And with full motion video games, you really don't know how much of the gameplay mechanic actually exists in the game, or how much of it. It seems like a lot of it is stuff like this, and most of this video is just an intro trailer. Let's see. Yeah, this looks like full motion video then to still image. You click on something, it plays a video, and then it goes back to a still image, which is not particularly what you would call full motion video, as much as maybe partial motion video. This is $3.99, discounted right now, although it's $9.99. It's full audio English, it better be. Let's see, over 20 real life locations, over 20 characters, easy mode, log dialogues. Let's see what the reviews say. 3 negative reviews. Super Seducer 2 Advanced Seduction Tactics, another full motion video game that's a troll game, for lack of a better term, or a joke game. Maybe not so much a troll, I think it's half joke, half troll. And it's rated very positive, I think, by a lot of trolls. Whereas the Shapeshifting Detective, I think, is a pretty good full motion video game. So it's kind of very hard, since full motion video games are pretty rare these days, and they always were. It's hard to get a general idea of whether a game would be good. Contradiction, another overwhelmingly positive game. Let's see. We have, I love FMV games, I love them a lot. The good ones, like Spycraft, use the medium to create veracity. The bad ones are campy and entertaining. This game is neither. It is bland and mediocre, and as far as I can tell, Jonathan Hunt is the most boring man alive. There's something amusingly bad dubbing from the women in the intro movie, but mostly everyone is just boring. It's boring. I'm disappointed. Same sentence. I really love FMV games and generally have a high tolerance and appreciation for campiness that tends to come along with this. So this person has 608 products on their account. This person has 1,627 accounts. What does that really mean? Not a lot. Like, this person probably has higher amounts of reviews than would be average for as many games as they have, whereas this person has only 22 reviews. Yeah, I'm definitely having the feeling that this is a case of This is the case of a passion project. I don't want to say passion project. Vanity project is the right phrase. We can see here this game, Yeoman Jack's Ring, came out May 21st, 2019. So if this game came out May 21st, 2019 and has no user reviews, wait, when did this game come out? May 2nd, 2018? So is he just taking his game off of sale on Steam and then putting it back up? Seems like that's exactly the case. Or this game was not on Steam before. Regardless. Yeah, this seems very much like a vanity project with the main actor trying to become the celebrity of a game series. Yeah, this doesn't need to go to the wish list. Next we have Micro Mages. This came out May 1st, 2019. It has exactly 20 verified purchase reviews, 95% positive. Is a platformer developed for an original 8-bit NES console, now on Steam, ROM included. Play solo with up to 4 players, simultaneously complete and compete over score, cooperate the overcome challenge levels. So the thing about this is that there's been a few games that have tried to do this, where they program a new Nintendo game or Super Nintendo game or Genesis game. It doesn't make a ton of sense, particularly when you're coming to the realm of Steam, because Steam isn't really the region where people who are downloading ROMs are going to spend a lot of time looking for ROMs. I imagine that there's a severe high amount of overlap between people who download ROMs and own Steam accounts with lots of games, but they're not coming to Steam looking for ROMs. And I personally don't think too many people are going to care about a NES ROM of a new game that nobody has any nostalgia for. Meanwhile, because you programmed this to run on an NES, the NES had maybe 25 megahertz processor in it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even lower than that, maybe a little higher. And it had a limited graphics ability, limited audio ability, limited everything. So you really can't make too much of a game, even at your best attempted best effort. By modern standards, you're not making much of a product. So what is the price for something like this? $10.99? That seems really high. 26 spooky levels, normal and hard. It doesn't even play infinitely. I can't imagine wanting this. Controls are not set immediately, and it does not live up to the hype. And I imagine this is the type of game that certainly would have gotten coverage. People talking about it, video game journalists talking about it, because it's different and unique. But yeah, as a gamer, and looking at it from a perspective of, is this something that's relevant and that people would want to play? This is the opposite of relevant. This is a ridiculous student project type idea that would be cool to say you did once, not cool to try and sell and have people enjoy. So Micro Mages, not making it to the wish list either. Next we have Might Magic Heroes 6. Unfortunately, we can see it's mixed at 45% of 5,130 games. I played Might Magic 3. Spent way too much time in my youth playing Might Magic 3. Heroes of Might Magic 3. This actually isn't the Heroes series. This is just Might Magic. Well, I guess it is the Heroes series, but they've changed the name, so it's Might Magic Heroes 6. Which is confusing, because there there were other Might and Magic series that were different and played differently. Apparently they fully abandoned the name and caused confusion. Let's just reload here. In the last 30 days it's mostly negative. And Ubisoft really just hasn't cared about it, and it's kind of ridiculous. They could have sat on the laurels and just not made any new Might and Magic games until they wanted to make a good game. It could have been a secret project in the works for years and years, and that would have cost money certainly, but there's really no reason to rush it and bring it out. This came out October 13th, 2011. 8 years from that point would be about now, so a game like this would make a lot more sense if it was a iPad style game or maybe a mobile style game. And it has a gold edition and a complete edition. So do you get the gold edition or the complete edition? I imagine you want to get the complete edition if you're going to get anything. I think though the truth of this is, and this is something that I really am having to learn, is if I want to cover something because I'm nostalgic for it, and if I like Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I should just get Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and play that and cover it, and then say 4 sucked, 5 sucked, 6 sucked. I'm not going to cover them, I'm not going to play them. If 7 comes out and it's good, I might just skip to 7. Let's see. Heroes of Might and Magic. Let's see. 5 here is available and 7 is available. So the one you want to play is Heroes of Might and Magic 3 HD edition. Even that seems to not be super well received. Ubisoft has been under the threat of being acquired for a long time from either Vivendi or Viacom. I always forget the name of the company that was trying to acquire them. That company eventually gave up trying to acquire them, and so they could correct their mistakes, and arguably maybe they put out these games trying to make some money so they didn't get acquired. So this is what Heroes of Might and Magic 3 looked like back in the day. This did not come out in 2015. The HD edition did. Probably came out in the 90s. Back in the day, this was a pretty great turn-based general commanding army style game, but it would take ridiculous amounts of time, and putting it on the iPad here is a great suggestion. Although, in all fairness, I'm not sure if a new generation of kids would put up with the graphics or the time commitment to play something like this. Heroes 3, I kind of get, like, it would make sense that I would want to cover that. But let's see, we could look at Heroes. I misspelled it. And so, let's see. Might. How did I misspell it so badly? Let's see. Heroes 7 comparison wise. That too is mixed. And this came out in 2015, so we really are on the point where Ubisoft, if they were working on Heroes 8, would be just about the time to release that also. I think the thing that happens though is you get these new graphics, they're good, they're kind of expected, but you don't get people doing a good job of writing good scenarios and making good gameplay mechanics. And arguably, by modern standards, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 has terrible gameplay mechanics. It takes forever, and you often have to have armies of thousands and thousands of skeletons in them or something to beat a boss. And every turn you take might be a turn in which your enemy is also summoning more skeletons. So it can just go on forever. So I think, yeah, with the exception of Heroes 3, which I have nostalgia for, it's pretty obvious this shouldn't be on the wish list. I shouldn't waste money to cover a bad game that's relatively well known to people who know the Heroes of Might and Magic series and doesn't really need to be known to anybody else. I don't need my YouTube channel to be, here's a bad game you've never heard of. Aren't you glad that you heard about this bad game you've never heard of and you don't want to play? That doesn't inform a consumer that well. Next game we have to consider is called Mini Time, I assume is how that's pronounced. A fast-paced, challenging, fun collection of different mini games, so WarioWare, except for in 3D. Everything from abducting a cow to flipping a pancake has something for everyone. Theme chapters, endless mode, and custom mode awaits you. This came out May 8th, 2018. It has 6 verified reviews. To me, this looks like it's probably a little bit of a joke game, troll game, or asset flip game. The fact that every other WarioWare game I've ever seen made it in a flat 2D animation style of some sort, and nobody spent the extra money to try to make 3D animations tells me that this game probably spent too much effort, and then that's going to inherently require the price to be higher than it should. And I don't think the 3D animations in any way would be easier. $7.99. There's an inconsistency in the animation style for sure. Like, if the entire game looked like that, that would make sense. Here it says, limited edition, only 5,000 copies will be sold. After the game will be updated to the standard edition and the exclusive achievement will be removed. Well, clearly, this one achievement game has not sold 5,000 copies, or they didn't bother to ever update it. May 8th, 2018. I suspect a lot of these games really do barely get a few hundred sales. 17 different mini games is far too small. You really, if you're going to make a WarioWare game, you need to be up in the 60, 80, 100 minigame range minimum. I could look at the 2 negative reviews here, but I'm not sure it's going to say anything that I don't already have figured out, that it's too expensive and it doesn't have enough minigames in it. Very fun for about 10 minutes, but grows old very fast. Would have loved for each minigame to be a lot longer, maybe a short explanation on what you're supposed to do. That's something a lot of WarioWare games fail to do too, is that there needs to be at least a hint as far as what the controls are and what you're supposed to do. Remember, the first WarioWare game had a touchscreen on it, so it was giving a general idea. For me, the price is a little too high also. And these other ones have been changed to positive, and yet somehow they're still coming up under the negative section, so I don't know what Steam is telling me there. Yep, so Mini Time leaving the follow list. Next we have Minotaur, from Mini Time to Minotaur. This game is 59% positive of 20 verified purchases. It came out August 11th, 2017. And I can totally see what I was hoping for here. Is a game that would have been polished, where you're playing as a Minotaur, because there aren't too many games where you get to play as a Minotaur. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing in the video is a lack of polish and I imagine this is just going to be shorter than it seems, very hacky and slashy. With seems like his attacks are pretty slow. Yeah, I don't think there's enough quality or polish on this. When you look at the life bar and energy bar, it's very generic. The blood splatter seems to just explode in a cloud around anything that gets hit. The animations seem to not exist as far as taking the enemies taking damage. Yeah, I wish this was a lot better. This also is an early access game for $9.99. Apparently it did update January 15th, and it's a English, simplified Chinese, German, and Russian, which makes me feel like it's probably a low effort game, control game. So yeah, Minotaur unfortunately not making it to the wish list because of low quality, which is true for most of the games. We still really only have 3 games that have made it. Next we have Middelborg City of Mages, a turn-based saga, mix of strategy, roguelike, and survival. Let's see what this has to show. Suppose I could unmute these videos, but that would probably be super annoying. That video had nothing to show at all. So is this kind of just a city management style game? It seems like it is. You click on different areas and then tell it to craft certain things. Is there any more to the game than that? No, you just stay on this one screen, it seems. Alright, well, this is thoroughly unimpressive as far as a game. Maybe what I was getting interested in was this one animated section, or maybe it was something where I just needed to do a little more research and wasn't willing to do the research at the time, and so I accidentally put this on the follow list when it didn't deserve it. It came out November 28th, still early access, $14.99, particularly expensive for what it looks like. Of course, this game does not deserve to be on the wish list. Next we have MMA Arena, which means we are either close to the middle of the M's or near the end. This is 81% positive of 21 user reviews. We haven't seen a VR game so far. This looks like it is a card-based fighting game in MMA, which is an interesting idea. This came out May 7th, 2019, so it's not even been out that long. So I think this might be a hidden gem. So I am leaning towards putting this on the wish list. Now what might happen is between now and the next big Steam sale, it might get more reviews and change my opinion on it, or I might look at this a little bit more. There is, I guess, a question here about how much single player content is here in this game, and how long would you really have to or want to play this. It seems like there's some currency, so I want to make sure that there's not any in-app purchases and loot box. Is this the kind of game that's, it says it's brutally addictive, but if it really is addictive, I might be scared off for that reason alone. It seems like on the map when you're choosing fights over on this one, seems like each one of these is a fight with a different character or different styles of actions or fights. So that seems like a lot. $6.99. It was updated for Steam achievements. That's 51 achievements, which seems like a lot. This is single player. It doesn't have any in-app purchases. which is good. So it's just a in-game currency that you would grind through. I kind of want to see what the gameplay average is here. 5 hours and 5.5. Initially I love the game, but lately it has stalled out big time. I can't progress to a new fight until I have 3 blue bells. I can't get my blue bells because apparently I can't click my mouse fast enough or make it through training dealing 15 damage with the limited combo cards I'm given, or make it through sparring taking 5 damage or less, or dragging. Okay, it seems like the game is perhaps not as balanced as it should be. Here's another worst fighting game ever. I guess as a fighting game it probably is pretty bad because it's a card fighting game. As of right now, the game is not playable. The deck you build as you get better by training does not work. You spend hours training and fighting matches only to realize the 40 cards you have saved in your fight deck is not the same cards you're being dealt in fights. As you rank up and fights get harder, you will notice the more as you get to know your cards and see that you put very good cards into your deck and than what you started with, but in fights you're still being dealt trash cards that look out that you took out a long time ago, so you lose the fight. You're playing a game using random cards each fight, though it's supposed to be using only 40 cards you built your deck with. Interesting. Well, game mechanics are broken, save files are broken, game is broken. I think this game probably deserves more 6 months. I can't really, on 27 reviews, particularly considering how it's only been out for about a month. Yeah, I think I need to give this one some more time. If it comes out and they're still updating it and there's a lot more people to buy it and review it, there might be something here. I didn't really see anything though that alleviates my fear that there would just be a ton of grinding even if the game worked the way it's supposed to. And let's face it, it does look kind of mobile-y. These graphics look like Unity assets for a mobile game more than hyper-realistic 3D games. I am interested in finding an MMA game, I'll say that much, but it would have to be kind of a good MMA game, and I'm not sure we've seen that come out yet. And frankly, it might be just in the realm of wrestling games where they're usually very bad. Next we have a game called Mongirl Tile. I imagine this game is kind of trying to sell on these monster girls being slightly interesting visually. The game itself seems like it might have some kind of gameplay that makes sense. That being said, this came out December 21st, 2018, and it has 2 verified user reviews. Even if they're both positive, what we're seeing in the gameplay style seems like this very possibly is just something sort of like an Othello clone, just made more complicated. I'm not sure I'd want to spend the time to learn how to play this game when this game is so irrelevant. It's $1.99. It was last updated, last got an update December 28th, 18. Yeah. I think this one just falls off the edge of being relevant. There's really no reason to trust this. This is the only game from this developer, which is very often exactly the case for all games, is that the developer comes out and they make one game and it stays on Steam forever in the hopes of making a few more sales, and that is that. So that's leaving. Next we have a game called Monkey King Master of the Clouds. Now, the Chinese love to tell the tale of the Monkey King. It's one of their great historic novels, as best as I can tell. The Monkey King tale is loosely what Dragon Ball was based on, and Dragon Ball Z and such, then continued in different directions. So a Chinese game telling the tale of the Monkey King, not super surprising. This is a shooter. It's probably pretty new, and it's tagged as retro, but I don't really believe it. $4.99, English only, which is weird. You would think that this would support Chinese. That being said, and the title being here in Chinese, I assume that's Chinese. Yeah, otherwise though, there's nothing here. An arcade classic in HD. If this is a maybe this, apparently they're saying it was a huge Japanese coin-op hit developed by Hot B in 1989. Alright, well, even if it was a huge popular thing, it's has no relevancy to the Western world. There are 5 negative reviews to 6 positive reviews here, and the game looks like it's nothing. This really isn't the kind of game that should have been on the follow list in the first place. I don't like shooters, shoot 'em ups or side-scrolling shooters. Like, not my style of game, and an old arcade style game in general is going to be a nightmare game, because they're always designed to steal quarters from kids and be impossible to play. So there's really nothing here visually or in any way interesting. Next we have a game called Monkey and Dragons, which is 66% positive with 16 verified purchases. It came out April 2nd, 2019. I suppose this is a point-and-click adventure, and I'm a sucker for point-and-click adventures, and this definitely does look like it's a point-and-click adventure that is heavily inspired by the Secret of Monkey Island series. Like, very, very inspired by it from what I'm seeing. You're playing as, I guess, a female protagonist this time, trying to save your your husband, who was kidnapped by a sorcerer. From the description, this lower bar looks like it never goes away, and that would be super annoying. Yeah. $9.99. We could look at the negative reviews here and get some more details, because with a point-and-click adventure in particular, it's going to be the writing, the story, the gameplay mechanics that people have complaints about more than anything else. Full audio in English is good, but then no subtitles in English is bad for anybody hearing impaired. Like, I wouldn't be surprised seeing these graphics if this was a beat for beat direct ripoff of The Secret of Monkey Island. Let's see. The early access version of the game launched with 3 chapters and an open end, and players could vote on the game's end. Well, it's not an early access anymore, so does it have a finished experience? Very buggy, not worth the price. I really tried to like this game. I'm a huge fan of the old LucasArts adventure games. Sadly, I can't. The references are too over the top, and there are several fourth wall breaking ones. The solutions to puzzles are easy to reckon, but the mechanics to do them exactly the way the game wants you to are unintuitive. In one instance during a quest, you help a spice farmer. You enter a scene. From the right hand side of the screen, there's actually another screen to the right you need to enter to complete the quest, but no logic dictates that you should exit to the map. It is not Instead, the left is I only actually found it by accident when I was stumped. Mini bugs like the main character can walk over characters or even fly in the throne room and game breakers. You can't progress because you picked something up you shouldn't have, or you can't be played with your, or it can't be played with your antivirus on. What? Alright, well, any game that requires you to turn off the antivirus is a game not worth playing. We can see if this developer, the self-publisher, has made anything else. They made another game that is mixed reviewed called Galactic Crew. Alright, well, I have more than my fill, probably more than a lifetime of point-and-click adventures, so mixed reviewed ones should definitely not be on the wish list. Next is Monopoly Plus, and unfortunately, like so many Hasbro games and board games in general on Steam, it's obviously a terrible, terrible version of it. 40% positive of 1,100 user reviews. That's no fluke. That's not a review bombing happening. That's a bad game. $14.99. Let's see, it's been patched since February, but if it had been patched, it probably would have people probably would have bought it and given it better reviews. See, I bought this game on Steam after seeing the reviews were mostly negative. Being a Monopoly fan, I wanted to give the game the benefit of a doubt, so I bought it. First problem, it took Ubisoft support 3 days to finally get the game to actually start on my PC. I figured, well, I'm pretty patient, so no big deal. It runs now. Probably my third match with bots, I encountered a sort of broken glitch in the game software. It seems like the bots have a default unfair advantage over the real players of the game. Here's an example. I owned the orange and pink properties along both utilities and all railroads, which means I own every property on that side of the board, marking the only safe spot as the community chest. All of the other bots except one are bankrupt. This last bot manages to bypass all 8 of my properties and land on the community chest 4 times in a row. All of the numbers on the dice rolls are different, and every number led directly to the community chest without fail. I find it very unfortunate that a semi-large company like Ubisoft isn't able to make games where dice actually roll at random. Let's see. Well, going no further with that, seems to be a problem with Ubisoft, and it seems to be a problem particularly with Hasbro games too. And frankly, why do this? Why make a Monopoly game and put it on sale if you're not going to do it well? It's not a hard game to make. Monopoly has been made dozens of times over for PC, and quite frankly, I could go find a CD in my garage right now of Monopoly from the 1990s and play it and have a better experience than playing Monopoly Plus. So, yeah. Unfortunate. I kind of had hoped that this game would improve, but it came out in 2017, so more than likely they would just put out a new Monopoly game and remove this one. And actually, if I was to type in the word Monopoly, we have what as our options? We have Under the Boardwalk, the Monopoly, what is this? The Monopoly Story, which is not a game but a video as far as I can tell. Yeah, it's a video of 58 minutes. So that there isn't actually another Monopoly game on Steam right now. Alright, well, mostly negative in the time that it took me to reload this page. And I don't even think this is the first bad Monopoly they put on Steam. I think there have been other Monopoly games I've seen, and removed from the fall list in the wish list. It really stinks. How can you screw up such a game like Monopoly? It's not a super simplistic game, but it's not hard to program to at all. Let's see. Next, we have a game called Monster Energy Supercross, the official video game too. So I'm a little iffy on wanting to cover games that are so tied into sponsorships and branding deals. I thought, though, when I first saw this game, if I'm recalling correctly, which it's been a long time and I see a lot of games, so I could be totally misremembering this, I thought this game was somewhat well received. That being said, 64% of 115 reviews tells me it's not really being that well received. I would be slightly interested in a motocross, supercross style game, although arguably, do you need a separate game just to play, just to race on motocross cycles, or could you just put it in a racing game in general? And it probably is easier to animate to depict a car going over a motocross level than it is to depict a motocross bike going over a motocross level. And he's dabbing, which probably is a big part of it too. Seems like there's a bundle here for $75.49, and to buy the game itself is $49.99. That's way too expensive. Way too expensive. So much so that I really don't need to look at the negative reviews. It's basically the same game as last year with some career tweaks and some track editor tweaks. They say they've made it harder and more realistic, however I feel they just made it hard to turn and you wreck a lot on landings. Overall the game is okay. Very disappointed as we skip down. I couldn't care about anybody's opinion when this game that came out February of 2019 wanted $50 minimum, when this is a at best AA title, probably a single A title. This is just greedy, way too greedy. So that's getting removed. Next we have Monster Hunting for Love. This game came out October 31st, 2018. It's 100% positive of 10 verified user reviews. It is a monster dating simulation game, so I like it for the weirdness. The question, I guess, that comes down to, does it have the relevancy there? Because this probably is just hand-drawn animations that don't ever animate or move or change, and it's probably mostly a text-based game where you're asking questions and doing dating style interactions. Like it doesn't seem like the even background changes that often, and it doesn't seem like you've got too many monsters that you can even date. $3.99 is not asking a lot. Let's see. Apparently you need to delete your save data if you want to play it again. It has 20 achievements, so I guess you try to get each 20 endings, or maybe some of those aren't endings. Spend time with 7 different characters, each has their own unique quirks and personalities. There are plenty of options to explore with multiple endings to be seen. Look around and find them all. The main character is veiled in mystery. Man, woman, gay, straight, hunter, lover, all, none. That's up to you. The characters have no preferences either, so go in and get it whoever you want, which is a fine way to make a dating sim game. Certainly. And they're recommending several dating sim games, and then like troll gay dating sim game. Well, maybe that one's not troll. I was thinking of a different game actually. Army Girls, is this a dating sim? I don't know. I think don't think it is. There's no negative reviews. Now, a YouTuber made kind of another game that's very similar to this, and it's not getting recommended here, but I would probably put him on the same platform. This came out October 31st, 2018, and if we look up the game Monster Prom, this game, because a YouTuber has a little bit more coverage, he's gotten a lot more reviews, and it's very positive. And I really wouldn't have a problem with playing both of these games and comparing them back to back. This came out April 27th, 2018. So yeah, there's two monster dating sim games back to back. Okay, $3.99 is not a bad price, whereas I believe this is $12. I guess Monster Prom actually came out before the other game, but if I was going to cover it, I'd probably cover this one first. Alright, well, I think we can put this on the wish list as a weird, silly kind of game to play. I would also suspect that Monster Hunting for Love probably takes a lot less time to play. 5 hours on record, 2.7 hours on record, 2.5 hours on record, 3 hours. You're not seeing a lot of commitment to this compared to most visual novels, which are 60 hours and thousands of words that you'd have to read out loud. Next, we have a game called Monster League, which is 85% positive of 27 reviews. Choose your favorite monster and take part in a furious driving challenge behind the wheels of the most wacky vehicles. So this is a Mario Kart clone that came out October 26, 2018. It's an interesting question. How many Mario Kart clones are going to be good on Steam? How many do I really need to cover? Do I need to cover any at all? Because in the end, Mario Kart has that on lock. This seems to also have a bit of Rocket League elements in it too, which, since Rocket League at some point is leaving the Steam storefront, a clone of that wouldn't be a bad idea either. I could make the claim that more than likely there's some Unity assets being flipped here, but I don't think that's really a fair claim. It seems visually this is polished pretty well. This kind of feels like a Pixar movie instead of a really early Pixar movie instead of a Disney movie in the form of animation. So there's just a little less bit of polish, but not a lot. Early access is the problem. October 26th, early access. When was it last updated? February. And yeah, everything fell apart around February of 2019. It seems people ran out of money. Should I give this another 6 months to come out of early access? Until they let us change the controller keybinds just like they let you change keyboard so I won't be playing again. Same, because otherwise the game looked fun. I had to refund till then. That was December 16th, 2018. That's the only negative review. We could see maybe the number of levels. It says it's gonna have online multiplayer. Does it have online multiplayer? Now it says it does. I'm interested in the number of levels per se. I see 6 game modes, and 8 characters. But how many racetracks? It's not saying that. It's not saying that. I'll give this 6 more months though. Maybe I'm running out of mental energy and not raising my standards as high as they need to be, but I really do think this might be one of the top 3 Mario Kart clones if it can fix its problems. Next we have Monster X Monster, which is a roguelike RPG card game. You have a team up to 4 monsters to escape the castle, defeating the heroes. It seems like you're mostly playing as slimes, and each slime seems to have a collection of 4 cards that they can play. That seems pretty fast paced, but maybe this video is just being sped up. Seems like the monsters do level up and evolve, which is an interesting idea. Kind of a Pokemon-esque style game. There's some silliness clearly in this. Got a guy wearing bra and panties and then pink boxing gloves. There might be something here. This is 84% positive of 44 reviews, and this came out May 17th, 2019, so really recently. It's still in early access, and it's $2.99 though. Although it does have the red flag of being English and Chinese only. So this might be an example of a good Chinese game, or this might be an example of a game that will get abandoned or turn out to be a bad game. The reviews are giving it a positive outlook, and frankly this doesn't look like a low effort Chinese game. Most of those games look way different than this. That being said, this might be really short in gameplay. You might play it once or twice and then be bored with it. I don't know what brings you back to this. And this is comparing, this is a game that you could also be playing Darkest Dungeon or Slay the Spire instead, and Slay the Spire in particular would be the exact same game. Here we see Room 51, so it might just infinitely go up and get redundant really fast. But I'll give this some more time. Let it bake in the oven a little bit more. I really don't think... I guess I'm lowering my standards here, and I'm upset with myself that I'm doing this, but I think 6 months in early access really is all you should deserve to get. Unfortunately, the video game industry, publishers on Steam, are pushing back on that idea clearly. There's so many games that are in early access that still look at least slightly interesting that I want to give them a second chance. And I guess that's in the end how they whittle down anybody's resolve or will. They just have to continue doing the bad practices that they do, with no real consumer protection against releasing unfinished products or selling unfinished products for years and years before you actually get around to finishing it. I wish we'd get back to the old ways in which game developers were finding patrons or publishers to fund the development of their game, and then they were releasing it and making that first impression when the game was actually finished. Next we have a game here called Moonfall Ultimate, which looks like it's a side-scroller beat-em-up, for lack of a better term, with some RPG elements in it. It's 40% positive with 10 reviews. It came out September 4th, 2018. It's $12.99, so it's too expensive. It's not well received. It's kind of a shame. There's some polish here. This looks like a real game, and that's how I guess got to the fall list, but now when I really have to consider it, yeah, this is leaving the fall list. Next we have a game on Steam called Moral King, another full motion video experience. 90% positive of 31 user reviews. So any full motion video has a very big chance of just being a bunch of actors doing a bunch of silly skits and scenes, and they made it kind of interactive. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this. It's $1.99, so they're not even asking a lot. Although it's only full audio in German, so it's a German game where you'd have to watch it in subtitles. I'm not super upset with that, though. I'd be willing to play a German game. Video doesn't play correctly, and that's kind of the whole point of a full motion video game, is the one negative review. So I doubt that would be the case for my computer and my setup. I have basically every playback codec you could think of installed, for better or for worse, on my PC. But that would be annoying, certainly. I guess I could refund the $1.99 if that was the case. Otherwise, I think nothing really stopping this going to the wish list. So that makes us have, I believe, 5 games now actually making it to the wish list. Next we have Mordhau. The problem with Mordhau, and it really is just a personal problem with me, is I just really don't want to play a game where you are a medieval knight fighting other medieval people. This is probably way better than For Honor, and probably cheaper than For Honor. It's a player versus player battle royale style game where you're well, at least it has a battle royale mode. There's nothing really wrong with it. If this is the kind of game you want to play, everybody likes it. 75% positive of 15,698. This is a big game that was, at least for a couple weeks, getting a lot of coverage from streamers and video game reviewers. It's just not my thing. $29.99 unless you want to spend $40 to get the supporter pack. Patches are coming in quick. It came out April 29th, 2019. Requires a third-party EULA. Bunch of achievements. 81 on Metacritic. Like, there's really nothing. I wonder why that came up like that. That's weird. Must have clicked it or something. Yeah, I just don't want to play this game. It really is. I can't justify it. I have no reason to nitpick and go look at the negative reviews. Maybe there's something to be said that 25% of the player base aren't happy with it. It does kind of feel like you're probably getting one hit killed a lot, which is probably not the best way to play a game like that. For instance, that bear trap definitely shouldn't have one hit killed a character. It seems like it's a very fast-paced game. I just don't want to play this. And it's not. It's the medieval setting. Frankly, I just don't want to play as a knight. I never had that play pretend mentality. I guess when I was a kid, I don't think I ever played knights in castles or Knights Against Dragons or anything, so I cannot relate to it at all. Alright, next game we have on Steam is called Mortal Blitz, and immediately I can see there's some cheesecake on the screen, so we might as well just reload it now. This Mortal Blitz applies gun shooting games from arcade game centers into VR platform and lets you experience the whole new first-person VR action shooter experience. Now for VR games, we haven't even had to talk about this so far. I'm almost certainly never going to buy a VR headset. They're too expensive. I've yet to see enough games that are quality enough to justify it. So if a game is good in VR, it's just going to stay on the fall list. This came out July 19th, 2017. It's 83% positive. Like so many other VR games, you're mostly just going to be standing in one place shooting at things that are running towards you. I would say, though, I kind of like the graphical polish that seems to be shown here. It seems like you can also throw grenades. The aliens and enemies that you're shooting seem to be pretty varied in their animation style. Seems to have like a bullet time, slow down elements, and there's a game called Bulletstorm. It seems like there might be some Bulletstorm-esque maneuvers you can do. Excuse me, talking too long. I'm gonna drink some water for a second. It's been 2 hours. I knew this was going to be a longer video. Once you start getting into the M's, you start running into long videos. M, N, OP. O will probably be short. Then Q will probably be short, but then R and S and T will be super long. Clearly there's an element here where they're trying to sell the game with boobs, and they've given you these side characters. But even in that, I would admit, most VR games don't even bother to give you companion characters at all. You're just alone shooting things. This is $19.99, and I think it's probably good enough to at least consider if I ever do get a VR headset, which I'll probably not ever do. Is there any new updates? See, that's the thing too, is this supports HD Vive and Oculus Rift, but it's probably not got any update to support the Valve Index or any newer controller inputs, so your mileage will vary as your technology gets better. Let's see. Finish the game in about 45 minutes. That is also a problem with VR games, is that you will just kind of run out of time. $20 maybe a little pricey for a VR game, but not really. VR games do have a high price, so I'm just going to leave this on the follow list. Next we have Mortal Kombat 11, and frankly, at 59% positive, this came out April 23rd, 2019. I don't really think I need this on my wish list. I don't think I need to cover Mortal Kombat 11. I don't think I need to really cover Mortal Kombat 10. I do have a list that I'm contemplating in my head about what are the top 3 or top 10 fighting games that should be covered. And in that list, there probably is an argument to play Mortal Kombat 1, 2, maybe even 3. But anything after that, not really. And Mortal Kombat 11 has done a lot in a lot of different ways, and it would be too long of a conversation to really have to talk about it all, but they've not really pleased their audience in several different ways, and you can see that in the reviews at 59%. There might be even some reviews here that have been excluded for review bombing, but I guess not. There's 2,452 reviews when it first came out to 2,581 reviews when it first came out, and now it's pretty much just apathy. Just people don't even want to buy it and don't care. Whereas Mortal Kombat 10 is mostly positive. Mortal Kombat the Complete Edition, which I have no idea what that really includes even, is rated very positively. And I'm not sure how many other Mortal Kombats you can even get on Steam. Let's see what the complete edition is. News chapter, the tournament. This kind of feels like it's a remake of 1, 2, and 3. $20 is also a lot cheaper. Yeah, I don't know what you call this. Was there a reboot? And is this Mortal Kombat 9? Let's see. Terrible online play, apparently, even according to the positive reviews. I assume Mortal Kombat Complete Edition is a remake and not Mortal Kombat 9. So I'm just assuming. Mortal Kombat 10. There might be a justification. A lot of new characters came out in 10, and I thought that was an interesting way to go. Like, I thought that was something that any fighting game should probably embrace. Every expansion should have a few extra characters. Perhaps Mortal Kombat 10 went too far in it, and it seems like every time they release a game, they fiddle with the controls and the way the games play, and none of them turn out to be amazingly positive or well received. So yeah. But yeah, as far as 11 goes, I say no, and if we're left with deciding between that, I probably will never get around to playing any of the Mortal Kombat games, and instead possibly play Street Fighter, or play BlazBlue, or any number of slightly lesser known but actually more popular at the EVO fighting tournament games. And I'm not sure how many fighting games I'm actually going to get into, because I'm going to kind of suck at them. And I'm not really ashamed to say that some of the fighting games are definitely around a anime lewd aesthetic, or just a lewd aesthetic in any way, in which the females are attractive and sometimes scantily clad. The males might be attractive and scantily clad also. And Mortal Kombat 11 certainly just peed all over anybody who liked that. They came out very, very loudly saying they were not going to put any of the females in anything short of full coverage clothing, long sleeves and such. They're basically putting them in close to burqas. Meanwhile, the guys are being held to a double standard, and there's still plenty of shirtless guys in the game. And then they said, well, the games up until this point have been disrespectful to the female characters. And it's like, okay, so you want me to hate the 10 previous games that I enjoyed and had nostalgia for, or most Mortal Kombat fans would have enjoyed and had nostalgia for? That's silly and ridiculous. And like I said, it would get into a big rant, but a bunch of social justice warriors apparently decided to take over control of Mortal Kombat and made it a less interesting, less entertaining game because of it. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 11 not making it to the wish list. Next we have a game called Mugsters, which, what is this? Aliens have taken over the planet and enslaved humanity. You only know how to drive back the dastardly threat. You have to know how to drive it back the dastardly threat. Free your fellow Earthlings and save the world. This game... What is this? I don't recall ever seeing this. Seems like you're driving, flying, and running a lot of times. in a Unity style game, but I can't really call it an asset flip game. Does seem to be kind of crazy. This is 83% positive with 24 user reviews. It came out July 17th. Can I play this single player? I have to, or local co-op. It's from Team 17 Digital, who are known for making the Worms series of games and kind of Prison Architect, I think, but they don't do that anymore. Or are they making the Escapist games? Yeah, Prison Architect or the Escapist, basically the same game. And Team 17 has certainly spread out and tried to publish a bunch of other games, but I don't think I'd really recommend them for as a publisher in general, because I don't think that most of their games are just by default good. This game feels too random. Let's look at the reviews, but $14.99 is making me think that this probably is not a game I'd actually want to play. Fast-paced action and racing. It kind of feels like it's just Twitch ADHD style gameplay. There's 4 negative reviews. Let's see what they say. Meanwhile, we'll see what they're recommending. Worms Armageddon. The Worms games are also hard to own and cover because you pretty much need friends to play with. Otherwise you're going to have generic, boring experiences. Bugs make the game impossible to finish. Basically, after 20 hours of play, I can't access the the final mission, because the game is buggy. Contacted support and helped them find the mission. After the week, the solution is reset the game and start again. Unplayable. My entire time in game was spent trying to get the controls to function. So that seems like that's some negative reviews. In the 26 minutes I played, I had a great time. That's not helpful. Would not pay full price for it. This is a fun physics puzzle game with a lot of explosions and plenty of dumb aliens to blow up. That should give most games a few short hours of entertainment. I think I'm out. Yeah. This seems not like a solid experience of a game, and I would say that's kind of Team 17 in a nutshell. I couldn't really play Overcooked because it's local co-op and has no single player. Really wouldn't want to play The Escapist 1 or 2. Really can't play Worms World Party without friends. I think a lot of their games do center around the idea of having friends playing with you, and when playing with friends, of course you're going to have a better experience, or you should at least. That doesn't mean you can make games assuming people will be playing with their friends. And frankly, I'm never playing with my friends. I'm always playing single player, so I definitely don't get those experiences. So Mugsters is leaving the fall list. We should be kind of close to the end, I'm hoping. Let's see. Next we have a game here called Musamano Adequa dos Haters, which I think is probably a troll game, but I'm not sure. I think this probably is a troll game, but it looks really good for a joke game or a troll game. And that's probably why it's on the follow list. It has 8 user reviews. It came out April 9th, 2018. It's still in early access, so I can eliminate it because of that. Portuguese Brazil. It was last patched in January of 2019. I have no idea who this person is. Is this the Portuguese well-known character or what? Let's see. I don't quite understand the subject matter of the game, but it looks nice. Let's see, that's That's all we've got. It's 2 reviews in English and everything else is, I assume, in Portuguese. Let's see. Yeah. A lot of Portuguese reviews, and you definitely don't see that. You definitely do not see that on your average game. Yeah. Because it's in early access, because it seems like a troll game, this is leaving. Next, we might be really close if we jump from U to Y. We have a game called My Big Sister. I believe this was a game that came out on Xbox Live recently, probably at the same, like 6 months ago or less. A few months ago, maybe 2 or 3. It came out to Steam November 9th, 2018, and it's really an example of how games coming to the digital storefronts of the Nintendo shop, or the Xbox shop, or the PlayStation shop, they are no longer any indication of quality at all. Like, basically any garbage can get out on a console, when there used to be a lot more curation happening here. This is a RPG Maker looking pixel graphics horror game. It's 95% positive of 145 users, so maybe there's something here to this. Maybe this is the hidden gem that is hidden behind the graphics of an RPG Maker game. I don't even know if this really is an RPG. They're saying it's an adventure. So I guess I'll look at the reviews. It's $5.99. It's apparently a whole bundle of games. But none of these other games are pulling up reviews. Yeah. PS4 or PS Vita, Xbox One, and Switch. May 9th. So it was probably very easy to port it because it was probably made in Unity. Let's see. Do we have 10 negative reviews? Not sure where to start with this. I really enjoyed the game right up until the final chapter. The story was a bit all over the place, but it felt right. Like everything would eventually fall into place at the end. Getting snippets here and there of stuff from outside of the current events felt like it was giving us, I streamed online clues to what was happening in the end, and I really enjoyed guessing with my viewers what was going on, but then I had issues I couldn't overlook. First big one is grammar and the occasional spelling issues. I dropped a word here and there. And let's see. This may be a petty issue for some, but for me, having grammatical or spelling error wrenches me from the storyline. It's my brain trying to different. Secondly, it's hugely story dependent, so I'm putting the issues splintering. Little ending spoils here. Dialogue in game, not fun, requested refund. The game continuously force closes. Was more campy than I expected. Boy, when they say early access, they really mean it. Those negative reviews not really helping me figure out what kind of game this is. Pretty good game for someone who can't play horror games. This game is pleasant to play. The story is a bit confusing and the controls can be a bit janky. Story which game is based on 2 sisters that are kidnapped and captured by an evil witch. The game is fairly short. It took me 2 hours at best. The storyline was nice, but probably a bit short for the full asking price. The game has a few bugs. Objects are sometimes difficult to interact with, or which items to interact with are hard to find. However, because the story is rich, the actual story is decent and fun to play. I would recommend on sale. Okay. So, what's the price here? $5.99 to play a game that looks like an RPG Maker game, that's simplistic and probably doesn't really have anything that interests me. No, I don't think I'm sold on this one. think there's just too many caveats to that idea. And frankly, the only reason I even heard about this game is because Major Nelson, the guy in charge of Xbox, tweeted it out as one of the games coming to Xbox. Otherwise, I would have never heard of it and never even looked it up. And now that I've looked it up, I'm not interested. Next, we have a game called My Little Writing Champion. It came out November 29th, 2018. And unfortunately has only 9 user reviews. Now, I'm in a bit of a quagmire. Like, there's never really been a lot of good games targeted to girls. Maybe that's because you don't need to make games targeted to girls, and maybe you should just make games that are inviting to all. Maybe it's particularly when it comes to video games, girls want to just play first-person shooters and Fortnite like everybody else. But clearly this is a horse riding style game. It's probably a little asset flippy, but it looks polished enough. And one horse riding game, one equestrian game wouldn't be terrible as a style of game to cover. Although I couldn't even really do a series on my channel about it. I could play one game and go, alright, if your little daughter is in love with horses, this might be a good game to play. That being said, it's $29.99, so it is overly priced by a lot. And I know that there's terrible mobile games out there targeted at children of all genders, but yeah, and that probably would be where most kids' games are going to come from anyways, is from mobile phones. You can see there's a few other games here that I probably should do some research in, like this Secret of the Magic Crystals. Looks like it's very positive with 600 reviews for $5. Oh, Horse Riding Deluxe is not considered good. There's a free-to-play that's mixed. And then here's Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, because there's a horse you ride in that game. One of these things is not like the other. Or Mountain Blade Warband, you ride horses in that too. Like, I think Steam is getting the wrong messages here. Here's another one, My Riding Stables: Life with Horses. So there's a couple I could consider that would be better for the price. Impressive enough graphically with voice acting, but considering the target audience of the game is obviously young children, I can't recommend. The controls while practicing competing in tournaments are absolutely terrible. I'm a lifetime gamer and an adult with my own children, and found the controls extremely unresponsive, especially the A and D keys to turn your horse. So that would probably be accurate to how a real horse reacts, quite frankly. Yeah, they don't tend to like to turn particularly. So this is very pretty, but clearly not worth the money. But I will do some more research here if I remember, and see if I can find a couple other things to put on the follow list for next time I do a follow list cleanup. Next we have My Summer Car. Is this the one where you're actually fixing a car throughout the entirety of the game and maintaining a car? Or yeah, I think this is. But then there's also some other elements to it also. So you're fixing, building, maintaining your car, but you also have to drive, and it has permadeath, and it's a life survival simulator. It seems like it adopted way too many different things, and it kind of feels like it's more of a joke game. And since this came out October 24th, 2016, there are other games that would be better for just fixing engines and fixing cars, and I think that would be the main part that this game is interesting to me about, ordering parts and and trying to drive down the road, seems like not so much. This is also in early access, and there's no way I can leave a game on early access from 2016. It's been 3 years. It's clearly abandoned. $14.99. Says it's update 9.5.2019, so it's putting dates instead of version numbers. So the 5th month, if you read it the European way, 5th month, 9th day, 2019. Previous update was the 12th month, the 23rd day, 2018, and you can see December 23rd, 2018. Yeah, there's no way this should be on the wish list. Car Mechanic Simulator, way better choice. And I assume that a lot of these positive reviews are trolls reviews. That being said, it also you don't get to 90% of 13,487 reviews just on troll reviews, so there's something here. It's just not a finished product and not worth the money. Next we have a game called My Time in Porsche, and I'm reloading every page here, and maybe I shouldn't be doing that. That's taking a few seconds each game. My Time in Porsche is a life simulation game, kind of like Stardew Valley, and I'm not sure I want to play any games like that, because quite honestly I didn't like Stardew Valley. I found it annoying. The 3D graphics here look interesting somewhat, but you will be doing farming, you will be doing fishing, you probably will be dungeon crawling, you'll probably be dating people, and even if there are a lot of other elements, the main gameplay loops I think are still not what I'm interested in. You're building your house, upgrading your house. It seems like they've put quite a lot of polish and work into this. This is again from Team 17 Digital, but it's $29.99 and single player only. I would also argue that My Time in Porsche came out just too close to Stardew Valley, so there's a problem there. This is kind of maybe a little bit more like Animal Crossing than Stardew Valley, but not by much. I wouldn't mind the hack and slash dungeon crawling elements if that was the only part of the game you had to play, but that clearly isn't going to be the only type of stuff you have to do. We're seeing farming and dating and just life simulation in general. So people that bought it, it's 89% positive of 10,165 user reviews. People are liking the game, but I think that really comes down to it selling itself as what it is, and people who see this and are interested in playing this style of game will like it. And it really is close to a personal problem. It's like, people loved Stardew Valley. When I got around to playing it, I didn't make it through a full year, I don't think, and I was just like, yeah, this is boring, this is grindy, it's not my style. And My Time at Porsche would be the exact same experience. I don't know what you could do to make a game like this more entertaining, because you basically have to remove all the gameplay loops and gameplay mechanics that I don't like, which would make the game not that kind of game anymore. Next we have a game called Mystic Vale, which looks like it is a card game that came out January 31st, and somebody apparently is streaming it right now. 79% positive of 79 user reviews. A board game card game. Is there online multiplayer? Yes. Single player. Maybe it was in early access before. Let's see. Seems like the cards might have some clear see-through elements to them, which that would be a cool idea, certainly, and that's something that real trading card games could do, is having a card that lays on top of another card, but then it'd have to be special decks, because then you could see through the back side of the card otherwise. And if you can see through the back side of the card, you can't have a deck face down where your opponent can see it. Or where you can see it. So I want to look at the reviews here. I'm always looking for competition to Hearthstone. Almost certainly this is not real competition. It's a deck building card game in which 1 to 4 players take on the role of a druid cleanse, trying to cleanse the curse of lands. Each turn you play cards into your field to gain powerful advancements and useful veil cards. So let's just look at the reviews. Let's see. I've played the tabletop version and the Yukata version a lot, and greatly enjoyed the mechanics of Mystic Vale. This version is nice. The graphics are better than the Yukata version. I like the little animations on the cards that works the way you expect it to. I realize it's still early access, but I would like to have access to the expansion and maybe be able to modify the rules to change it up a bit. I like the German version of the rules you can play under on Yukata. Oh, let's see. So it sounds like there's 2 different versions of this game digitally. Would be a great game, but it seems as though when playing the AI that I spoil 1 out of every 3 lands, and the AI doesn't spoil any at all. Let's see. Faithful reproduction of the board game. Now, I don't know the board game. This is an amazing card game. The video game, however, did not have the staying power to justify the price. I mean, matches are fun, but they boil down to the same strategy in each game. With no hot seat, I can't recommend this game, nor justify buying any DLC. Great game, port is great, not worth it without hot seat though, unfortunate. So, hot seat being multiple players playing on the same computer, local multiplayer. Which Steam can certainly be confusing because it can be labeled multiplayer and not have local multiplayer because it has only online multiplayer. $14.99 for a deck building board game I've never heard of. Do I want to really put this on the wish list? Why not? There are so many bad board games on Steam. We may have to scrape the bottom of the barrel sometimes. I'll put this on the wish list. I still have to decide during a sale if I really wanted to spend the money on this, and I imagine I would give it more consideration at that point. I think this is good enough, and this is a great example of a game. If somebody gifted it to me, well, then the price might be a little high at $15, so hopefully they would have gotten it on sale. But if somebody did gift it to me, it wouldn't be a big commitment, and I don't think I'd buy the season pass or the DLC. You are talking $35 really for this game, and it seems like the season pass is new, so maybe there's more content coming, but still seems like a pretty high price in total. And that's all the games starting with the letter M. So we had just about 6 games actually making it to the wish list, and then everything else getting removed from the fall list, which is pretty typical amount of games. So my standards feel like they may have slipped a little bit. Maybe I let a few games in that really didn't deserve it. But overall, I'm still doing a pretty good job of cleaning up the follow list. It's been nearly 2 hours and 40 minutes, so let's just wrap this up as it is. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube, tells them my videos are worth watching. When you subscribe, click the notification bell so you might actually get notifications. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites down below, there's a bunch of links to those. Also, there's a link to Patreon if you want to support me and cut YouTube out as a middleman. That would be very helpful. Or you could friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. That's why we're doing all of this work, in part. Or you could just gift a gift card or any game you'd like to see me cover. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.